Okay, so obviously way back in the start of the summer, we all went LARPing, and I know you are avid listeners are waiting with bated breath to listen to what we got up to. Now, once I get my head up my fucking arse, we will be able to actually get that episode out. It will be me, the voice guy, and Lefty No Hands chatting about what happened in a field in Colchester when we battered the fuck out of each other with rubber swords. Stay tuned and you'll hear it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to a DDB podcast, a Dem Drunk Blokes production with me, myself, the Grandmaster, the Flashmaster, the absolute supreme leader of the network, Shogun Pumbaa. Now, I won't be talking much this episode, but what you will get is the subtle tones of Dalek sex.
Hello,
say hello,
everybody. Hello. Now, welcome to Dem Drunk Blokes, sponsored by Onion Games. Doesn't that feel good, Pumbaa? Doesn't that feel good to hear?
I'm cold.
We're sponsored. We're sponsored by somebody, yes.
Hang on, what happened? Where's my royalties?
We're not actually getting any royalties, I'm afraid, my old mucker. But Onion Games have seen fit to furnish us with a free copy of their new game, Blackbird, which happens to be the best fucking shoot-em-up since Ikaruga. So, if you've got a PC and you want a free Steam key for Blackbird, then stick around to the end of the show.
Or answer this question.
What question?
I thought you'd have one.
No, don't question. You've got the question. I gave you the question.
I got. What size are my feet?
Drunk blokes, oh won't you come and be a drunk bloke? We've got some sherry from the little bar in where girls with baby cars shop in their pyjamas. Chaps, drunk blokes, oh come and listen to them drunk blokes. The only one recorded in a motorhome, with Pumbaa making tea spiked with whiskey. Drunk blokes, you're probably already a drunk bloke. In which case let's sit down and see what happens next. We don't think that they've got arrested yet, or banned from any public events this year.
Welcome to Dem Drunk Blokes, a very special episode entitled The Impossibly Romantic Story of an Impossible Romantic. Now then, it's the mid-90s, Pumbaa. It's 1993.
Is it?
Yes, it is. We're going back in time. What are you doing? What are you playing?
I'm wearing a long, sort of long-sleeve white baggy t-shirts and baggy jeans, and I'm sort of dancing out while high on ecstasy.
Yes, but what are you playing? What's
I'm playing my own banjo string. No, mid-90s. Mortal Kombat. I was a Mortal Kombat fucking expert back then.
Okay, what about at home? What are you, what games console do you have and what's inside it?
Mine was Mega Drive. Mega Drive was my...
Oh, fuck! Well, that's fucked this segment, hasn't it?
Well, you was looking for the Super Famicom.
Because I had a Super Famicom. I had a SNES, like all normal human beings. And I was playing Final Fantasy IV, or Final Fantasy II, as it was called in this country, and Final Fantasy VI, or Final Fantasy III, as it... Well, I'm not going to get bitter about that. I'm sorry, I don't get OCD about many things, but
hang on, which was
conventions... Six was called Final Fantasy III in the West.
Was it?
Yeah.
Six was the one with Blitz, like the one that had everything in it.
Yeah, with Saban, who was called Mash in the original, and Blitzes, yes. One was 1, 2 was 4, 3 was 6.
No, 2 was 2. I remember 2.
No, oh god, no. Oh god, no. 2 was not 2. The actual Final Fantasy 2 is one of the worst games ever made.
Really?
Oh, it's fucking terrible. There's actually
The first one wasn't great, to be honest.
Oh, I liked it.
I
finished the first.
What it needed.
I've finished the first one.
Did you ever play the Dungeons and Dragons game on the NES and SNES? On the Mega Drive and SNES?
Which one was that?
It was just called Dungeons and Dragons.
Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh,
very easy to say.
Hey. But you made your own group of 4, like, halfling, elf, dwarf, human, and like the only weapon you could get at the beginning was a sling, and then you had to, like, it was like tabletop. It was like move, attack.
It sounds terrible. My point is,
it was awful.
That back in the day, when everyone over here was playing Final Fantasy, there was another series that Squaresoft was producing, and it was called Romancing Saga. Now, it was the sequel to the Saga series. Do you remember the Final Fantasy games on the Game Boy?
No. Crystal Blokes?
Oh god, no, this is a long time before that. Back in the day, they realised that Final Fantasy was a money spinner. So the Saga games, 1, 2 and 3, were renamed Final Fantasy 1, 2 and 3 on the Game Boy. And the first Seiken Densetsu game, the sequel on the SNES, of which was called Secret of Mana, was retitled The Final Fantasy Adventure.
Yeah.
So
that
basically, everything that could possibly make money that Squaresoft created in those days was slapped Final Fantasy.
Yeah, well, it was their last chance. The original one was their last chance on it.
But they didn't do too good on the Game Boys, so when the SNES remakes rolled around, they were already making the money from Final Fantasy, so they didn't bother bringing them over. And that is where one Yoshiro Kimura got his start. He worked on Romancing Saga 2 and Romancing Saga 3 in 1993 and 1995, respectively. Nothing remarkable. So he then left Squaresoft, and he resurfaced in 97, working for a very short-lived Japanese developer called Dalek. And they made a game called...
Sorry? Say that again?
Dalek. I'll spell it for you. LOVE space LIC... Sorry. LOVE space DE space LIC. Love Dalek. Do you love Dalek? Would you like Dalek?
I'm guessing there was a French influence at some point.
I'm prepared to change the subject entirely.
I would.
They made a game called Moon Remix RPG Adventure for the PlayStation 1. And this is a game about a little boy who gets dragged into the world of his PlayStation RPG. And he ends up meeting the ghosts of all the monsters that the hero in the game has killed.
Wow.
I know. Isn't it just impossibly romantic?
It's nice.
Wonderful. Wonderful. He then disappears for 5 years. And he resurfaces working for Natsume in 2002, and he makes Tulip for the PlayStation 2, which is a game in which it's set in a town which has its own rhythm and its own routine, like Harvest Moon or Stardew Valley. Where like you've got a number of characters that go through their own lives every day and they get up and do things at the same time, yeah?
Yeah, right. Okay.
And the idea is to ingratiate yourselves with these characters so that you can kiss them.
Oh, that's got a very dating sim feel. Like Japanese dating sim feel.
No, not really. It's not really a dating sim feel. He intended it to be a subversion of the fact that the Japanese just don't kiss very much, that it's not a public thing. He's said in later interviews that he would really like to do an American version of Tulip, but it wouldn't work because we don't
have the same social standards.
We're not awkward about kissing, and the whole hook on which Tulip is hung is that the Japanese are awkward about kissing.
Hmm.
But yeah, good for him. He then surfaced for Atlas in 2006, 4 years later, working on the horror game Rule of Rose.
Don't know that one.
The following, it's a weird one. It's a really weird one. I would take up more time than we have for this podcast if I was to talk about it. But go Google it because it's a fucking weird one. Yeah. It has some. It ran into some serious controversy, I think, because it had some very, very mature content for the age of its characters.
Okay.
And that's all I'm gonna drop there.
Yeah.
Go find out by yourself if you want to. So he pops up again a year later in 2007, working on, of all things, No More Heroes with Suda 51.
Oh wow.
Suda 51.
Suda 51.
Suda 51. Yeah, Suda 51.
Sudi.
He works with
my mate Sudi.
He works with Goichi Suda on No More Heroes. 2 years after that, he produces Little King Story with Town Factory
on the Vita.
and Sing. I believe there was a Vita version, yes, and on the Wii and PC also, which is sort of like an ultra mega RPG version of Pikmin.
Yeah, no, I played that. That is actually quite a good game.
It's a marvelous game, yeah.
Yeah, that it had hours of playability, but in small sections, it was great.
And then he disappears. In his own words, he ran away to Paris. Which is a bit cool. I mean, don't get me wrong, I fucking hate Paris.
I hate the French.
But I hate the French. Everybody hates the French. But, you know, it's something to put on your CV, isn't it? I ran away to Paris. I mean, if you said I ran away to Warsaw, or I ran away to Barcelona, then people would think, you're just a fucking waster. But if you write, I ran away to Paris on your CV, then people go, yep, fair enough, that is a thing that people do. So, yeah. The thing about Kimura is he doesn't care about money or intellectual property rights. Kimura just went and stayed on his mate's sofas while he just bashed out games on his laptop. He didn't care that he wasn't making them to be played by anyone. He just wanted to make games because it made him happy. I mean, this is a guy that at age 13 saw Lode Runner running on an Apple and just went home and wrote a clone of it. At age 13.
Okay. If you want things done right, get a Japanese person to do it.
Yeah. So Kimura's like, I mean, I don't know how well-to-do he is personally. I know that gaming isn't his only source of income. I mean, I know he's a fairly accomplished artist in traditional Japanese black ink artistry. Nice. Yeah, he's had exhibitions in Switzerland, and
is that because he went to Paris?
I don't know, but he lists himself as game developer and traveller on Twitter. So he's obviously able to sustain himself as a bohemian.
Yeah.
But it was this lifestyle that led him to attend GDC in 2012. And at GDC 2012, Yoshida Kimura suddenly found himself surrounded by not only people who were doing the same thing as him, just bashing out the their little games on their little computers on their lap because it made them happy.
Alan Zucconi.
But people who were being paid to do it. There on the floor at GDC, surrounded for the first time by his people, he started to cry. And that is where we got Onion Games.
So it was people upon people that love what they're doing?
No, onions make you cry, you retard.
Oh, do they? It tastes nice.
Yeah, I know they taste nice, but you cut onions, they make you... Jesus Christ, I've spent this whole podcast building up to this fucking great emotional reveal. Yes, onions make you...
No, they make you cry. They don't make me cry. They make me hungry.
Anyway, he contacted his old friend Kazuyuki Kadashima, who did the art on Super Mario RPG.
And Mad World.
Ooh. Yeah, showing your chops there. Like it, my friend, like it. And they started Onion Games.
Mm.
They were working for some years on their stuff, and then finally, last year, they came up with Dandy Dungeon.
Dandy Dungeon.
Have you not played Dandy Dungeon?
Does it sound like I've played Dandy Dungeon?
It does not sound like you played Dandy Dungeon.
Yeah. Right. So what is Dandy Dungeon?
It is a free-to-play RPG.
Oh, sounds good.
Where you have to... It shows you the layout of the screen at the start of the game, and you have to trace a path that your character will take with your finger. And they will then go off and battle the monsters according to the path you have taken. In looks, it is based heavily on Namco's The Tower of Druaga. If you've ever played that.
Deceiver prequel?
No. Oh dear. I'm not going to try and educate you in the ways of the Tower of Druaga because it's worth its own podcast. I could fill a whole podcast just listing all the secrets in the Tower of Druaga. But if you're on the Switch, you can buy Namco Classics, which has a full version of it. Suffice it to say, here's the plot. Dandy Dungeon, The Legend of Brave Yamada-kun, is about a salaryman called Yamada. And he gets fired...
Who's young?
Sorry?
Who's young?
No, he's
Sorry.
middle-aged.
And still called Kun? He must be shit.
He is shit. But he's the best character. He's just the most wonderful, wonderful character. He works for a Japanese company. But in his spare time, he's trying to develop his own game. But they catch on to how much time that he's spending on his own project, and they fire him. But they don't just fire him, they break into his house and they hold him down while hackers alter his game.
What?
Yes. And they corrupt his game so that the people who were tormenting him in real life are now in the game as bosses.
It's like a weird comic book zone.
It's incredibly meta.
Thomas was alone.
His real life tormentors affect his escapist world. So from that point of view, you've got the detractors of his life affecting his game from the top down. But on the other hand, every time he gets inspired, and every time something makes him happy and imaginative, he adds a new mechanic to the game, which then you have to play. So you've got his inspirational elements adding things to the game from the bottom up. Oh, it's very moving.
Sounds
it's
clever.
Incredibly clever, and the characters are wonderful, and it's just such a wonderful moving game. Oh, and there's a paid DLC to it where Nobuo Uematsu, the Squaresoft sound guy, The guy that made the Chocobo theme, and the guy that wrote da 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 da. There's a whole DLC where he shows up as a character playing himself.
Really?
It's beautiful. It's so funny, and for some reason he's got an obsession with UFOs. He's got an obsession with Roswell style shit.
That's actually quite clever.
Then he made Million Onion Hotel, which is a grid-based puzzle game. It's set in a hotel on the border between two nations that are at war. And the idea of the game is it's set on a 5x5 grid, and you've got to make lines and rows, but you have to do so in such a way that it scores you the most points that you can possibly get. It's one of those games that's really, really simple to grasp, but really difficult to get the top score on.
To master.
And every time you manage to have a certain amount of score, it advances the plot of the game, and it shows you what's going on with the inhabitants of the Onion Hotel.
Is it like a parody of, like, obviously Hokkaido with the Russians and the Japanese? Like the argument that's going on between
kind of, but no more so than any other Cold War type scenario. And then, a bare, 6 months later, he's made Blackbird. And holy shit, Blackbird. Oh! Now, I am not the world's biggest shoot-'em-up enthusiast, but good fucking god, this is good!
Are you saying shoot 'em up? What, Modern Warfare clone?
No, I mean like old school. I mean
Smash
Gradius. TV. I mean Scrolly shoot 'em up. I mean Salamander. I mean Poppin' Twinbees, sir. I mean Radiant Silver Gun. I mean Gunbird. I mean Dodon Pachi.
Zevius. Presses in a second.
Slap fight.
So go on then.
Okay. It's largely based on Hans Christian Andersen's The Little Match Girl.
Fucked up tales. Okay.
Yeah, a little girl starves to death on the street. Nobody notices her, everyone walks past. A disinterested, top-hatted gentleman prods her with a cane and then walks on when she fails to respond. This all happens in the game's intro. Whereupon she transforms into an egg and is reborn as the murderous Blackbird.
Is it like Binding of Isaac?
You know what? It really does have a Binding of Isaac vibe. But whereas Binding of Isaac is a very claustrophobic and very introverted, trapped in a tiny space environment, Blackbird is explosive. It feels like singing from the rooftops. You have to murder everybody. Murder all of the pricks that never paid attention to you while you were alive. Kimura says that these games are about peace and love, by the way. and Blackbird is, but the thing is, as his games have gone on, Dandy Dungeon is a very beautiful story about an underappreciated small guy. And then you've got Million Onion Hotel, which is more political, a little bit darker. And he says that as he's got more successful, he has got less scared about expressing the darker side of his stories. The way he explained Blackbird, he said growing up in Japan, especially Tokyo, you're growing up in a disaster zone. And you see the earthquakes, you see the tsunamis, you see the typhoons. And every time something bad happens, everyone flocks together. Everyone gets together, everyone bands up, everyone looks after each other. And he said what Blackbird is about is, why didn't they band together and be nice to each other before the disaster? He said Tokyo is a city where everyone is a robot, everyone is on autopilot, everyone is walking past terrible things that happen, like homelessness and what have you. Everybody is just like getting on with their lives. Why weren't they nice to each other before the bad thing happened? So in its own way, Blackbird is kind of like, it's a positive message. It's just a really horrific fucking game about murdering everyone and it's an opera. It's an opera as well. It's an opera in a made-up language with like fucking cut-out puppet designs that look like Terry Gilliam's Baron Munchausen. And it looks so awesome, and it sounds so awesome, and it plays so awesome. It's so good! And you can have a copy of it for free, dear listeners.
If you can answer this question.
We're not doing that. We'll tweet it out after the show. Retweet our competition tweet, and you will be in it for a chance to win a free PC copy of Blackbird, which is good. Because I've heard a lot of people say it's overpriced at £15, given that there's only 4 levels in it. I personally don't accept that, because there's just so much there to uncover. I mean, yeah, you can finish it in like a quarter of an hour, but all of the stuff, all of the unlocks, all of the secrets, and it gets so hard. It gets so hard once you've finished it. Oh, it's just like, it's like serious shoot 'em up boners.
So, unlike most things, it gets harder after it's finished.
Pumper, I think I've shot my bolt on this. Can you take us home with this podcast, please?
Can I take it home? I just want to recap on stuff that's happened so far. What I've seen so far, or what I've heard so far, is an amazing game creator, developer, whatever you want to call him, fucked off to France, and that was a good thing, apparently. He's then come back to his home roots. He's come back there, and he's made his greatest game of all time.
Not just his greatest game of all time. In the space of 2 years, he has made 3 games that not only are people saying are solid gold mobile classics, but have them talking about him in the same breath as Swery, Suda51, Kojima. That's no fucking mean feat.
And I'm not taking that away at all, in any way, shape or form. As both me and Dalek have lived in the land of the rising sun for some time, this just shows you that not everybody is the same. And some people, they struggle to make anything week by week. But we are back. And we will be back in the next few weeks. And I'm well drunk. I'm terribly drunk.
I think you're drunk, mate. If you have already got the games on your mobile phone that we have listed here, to wit Dandy Dungeon and Million Onion Hotel, you may like to know that Yoshido's favourite games are on mobile are Threes and Mushroom 11.
Mushroom 11. Explain this one.
I don't know, I haven't played it yet. I bought it the other day because I heard it was a good one.
It sounds good.
I think it's some weirdo platformer, but I really should have played it as part of my research for this podcast, but I have been too busy flying and drinking and flying and drinking.
Brilliant. Right, so we have been Dem Drunk Blokes. This has been a random episode speaking about random shit with my friend, Random Dalek Sex.
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. It was a very specific episode, sponsored by a company that was very kind to give us some scratch to...
Who gave you scratch? They didn't give me no scratch.
In the form of a free game to give to our listeners.
So, Dalek, take it away.
Good night, everybody.
No, you're supposed to... What? The game...
What?
The game. Sell the game. What?
I just did.
Good night, everybody.
Are you listening to a fucking word?
I listen to everything. It's so subtle and dry and...
I think you may have fallen asleep while I was actually giving the game away.
You may have given the game away. What do you have to do to get the game?
Night, everyone!
What do you have to do to get the game?
Onion time!
You have been listening to Dalek Sex and Shogun Pumbaa. Follow us at Shogun Pumbaa, at The Voice of Sex, and don't forget to follow at Dem Drunk Blokes for your chance to win a copy of Blackbird, the greatest 2D shooter in recent years. Thanks again to Onion Games for providing us with a Steam key. Go and follow them at oniongames_en.